Deep in the bowels of an ancient labyrinth, long-forgotten secrets and priceless treasures wait for adventurers brave enough to claim them. But can your party remain sane enough to get the riches they seek? Welcome to Quick Quest, where I give you ready-to-run adventures to use in your own games. This quest is designed for a party of 4 level 13 characters, but can easily be scaled up or down based on the level and number of players that you have. I ran this in one of my own campaigns a while back and had a lot of fun putting my players through the gauntlet. Without further ado, let's get started. This quest can truly fit anywhere in your campaign. I ran it as part of a player's backstory, with him learning that this maze was on a far-flung island, and when a few brave souls tried to enter, a wailing from deep inside caused them to pass out on the spot. He was looking for information on his otherworldly patron, and so the maze promised to hold secrets within as to who was pulling his strings. When preparing this adventure, you'll need to decide where the maze is and what will lure your players inside. As you'll see in a minute, the Labyrinth is designed to mentally mess with those who go inside. As some suggestions, you can flavor it as an ancient temple to a god of insanity and chaos, lying in the ruins of a long-lost city. It could be the creation of a mage who went mad with power, designing the Labyrinth so that nobody could get his treasured magical secrets kept inside. Or it could be a test laid out by a god of will or intelligence, meant to test a party cleric to see if they're a worthy champion. The setup for this can be pretty much anywhere in your world as long as it's sufficiently hidden, something that's off the beaten track. As for what they can find inside, that'll also depend on your party. If you're using this as a part of a character backstory, like I was, the reward could be information for that player, or a magic item that fits their build well. General riches are never frowned upon, and you can also put story-related information and items in here too. However you slice it, this is a versatile adventure that can fit in almost any campaign. Reaching the exterior of the maze, they'll find the entry has been left open for all to enter. But the moment one of them sets foot inside, they'll hear a wail emanating from deep in the maze, a sorrowful bellow that fills them with dread. Anyone within 10 feet of the maze entrance will need to make a DC 15 Wisdom saving throw. And if they fail, they fall to 0 hit points, unconscious. At level 13, most of your players should be able to save, but just be prepared in case the dice gods curse them in that moment and they all fail. Unless you want a bit of an anticlimactic end to your campaign, you should probably have a backup plan. Glancing inside, your party will see a staircase that descends downward, lit by ever-burning torches attached to the walls. Once they start down, they'll notice that if they look back, they'll no longer see the entrance behind them, only more stairs. As they trek deeper and deeper down the staircase, the air around them will grow colder, and they'll begin to lose track of time. Seconds feel like minutes, feel like hours. Your party will need to make a DC 17 Wisdom save or gain 1 point of exhaustion from walking for what feels like hours. Eventually, they'll reach the bottom of the stairs, though for some it will have felt like minutes, while others will swear they were walking for much longer. Before them, the stone walls will open left and right before branching off again in different directions. This is the Mad Maze, and your party will need to keep their wits about them if they want to survive. Don't worry. To run this quest, you won't have to keep track of an entire sprawling maze. Leave that to your party. As they begin exploring the labyrinth, have the party assign who wants to keep track of their path through the dungeon and who wants to keep watch for traps. Whichever character takes the lead on guiding the group will be making investigation checks, while the watcher will roll for perception. The deeper in they go, the more puzzling the maze becomes, and the harder it'll be to keep things straight. The basic flow of the dungeon will be this. Your players roll for investigation, and regardless of the result, face some sort of obstacle in their way. If they roll well on that investigation check, then they find a door with a puzzle, beyond which is a landing with some kind of challenge. That's how they know they're making progress. If they fail, then they realize they've been going in circles and have to try again, facing another obstacle afterwards, so on and so forth. If one of your players is really good at investigation, this dungeon could really be their time to shine, getting out of there with minimal obstacles. But here's the catch. The longer they spend in the maze, the more they hear whispers at the edge of their consciousness and feel the maze beginning to wear on them. Every time they face an obstacle, afterwards they'll have to make a DC 15 Wisdom save, and on a failure, they'll begin to go a little insane. The Dungeon Master's Guide has a whole list of sanity effects to use on your party, ranging from short-term problems to permanent character traits. Personally, I think some of the options are better than others, so I suggest taking a look at their lists and making your own with all the best ideas, including any you can think of. The first investigation DC will be 15. Not too bad. For obstacles, you could choose any number of traps or challenges to throw at them. They should be pretty short and straightforward though. These aren't the real meat of the dungeon, that's the combat encounters. If it's going to take longer than maybe 10 minutes or so, it's probably too long. But here are a couple examples of ones that you can throw at your players. 5 swinging blades line a hallway, and they'll need to make DC 14 dexterity saves to get past or find some other creative solution. If they fail, they get sliced and take 3d6 slashing damage. A 40-foot hallway with spikes all along the ceiling, and when they get halfway down it, the whole hall flips and they'll begin falling toward the spikes. They'll have to avoid getting skewered by making a DC 16 strength or dexterity save to grab onto one of the wall torches, transforming into a flying animal, casting featherfall to land safety in between, whatever creative solution they can think of. If they fall onto the skewers, they take 8d10 piercing damage and are restrained. They'll need a lot of healing potions for that one. If the Watcher fails a DC 17 perception check, they'll step on a small tile in the floor. In classic Indiana Jones style, the ceiling behind them will open up, and a giant stone boulder will begin rolling towards them. They'll need to succeed on a DC 16 athletics check to outrun it, or come up with their own idea. If they fail, they'll take 68 bludgeoning damage as the boulder slams them against the far wall at the end of the hallway. Oof. They come across a hallway dripping with slime from floor to ceiling. Walking through it requires a DC 15 strength save, and they'll take 3d6 acid damage as the slime burns their skin. If they fail, they'll become restrained and will take that same acid damage for each attempt they need to get through it. If they use magic or abilities to try and fly through, they'll still have to dodge slime that's dripping from the ceiling. That'll be a DC 15 dexterity save, or get singed. This maze really sucks. The Watcher's up again. If they fail another DC 17 perception check, they'll miss that the floor head looks slightly off, like it's a little lower than the rest of the hall. If they step on it, the floor will crumble underfoot, and your Watcher and Investigator will need to succeed on DC 17 dexterity saves or tumble into a pit of flaming coals. They'll take 8d6 fire damage and find themselves 30 feet below the rest of their party. Each time someone attempts to get them out and fails, they'll take that fire damage again. Hopefully they at least have some rope, otherwise they might just get cooked. Again, you guessed it, the Watcher will need to succeed on a DC 17 perception check to see tiny holes in the ceiling and tiles all across the floor. If they fail and step on one, poison gas begins filling the room, and everyone in the party will have to make a DC 16 con save or take 6d6 poison damage. High-level druids can ignore this one, but everyone else will be having a bad time. Not everything in here is terrible. They could come across a skeletal body wearing tattered old robes, their bony arms clutching a book in their hands. It's an old wizard's journal describing how they found the maze and their eventual descent into madness within. Inside the book is an inscription for the spell Mental Prison that can be used as a spell scroll or copied into a wizard's spellbook. Not all bad. Okay, back to bad stuff. Your players will reach an intersection where the maze splits right or left, both pathways appearing to lead to empty halls. But if your Watcher, once again, can't succeed on a DC 17 perception check, they'll fail to notice that the right side is an illusion. They and the Investigator will walk right into a freezing cold wall of invisible magic, take 5d6 cold damage, and be restrained. They'll either need to succeed on a DC 17 strength save to get free, have someone dispel it with their own magic, or get creative. Your party might want to change Watchers at this point. Those are some ideas of obstacles to throw at your players, but feel free to come up with your own as well. And don't forget that each time they face an obstacle, they'll also need to roll their wisdom save against madness afterwards. The maze is a test of their character's physical and mental limits, but if they can survive the challenges, they'll begin to make headway. After they succeed on their first investigation check and get past whatever obstacle or obstacles were before them, they'll reach a hallway blocked by a golden door. Embedded in the face is an obsidian skull with glowing red rubies for eyes. Underneath is a handprint with the words "Pay the Toll" scrolled in deep speech. To get through, your players will have to take turns pressing their hands against the door. Once they do, they'll feel their life force start to be drained from their bodies, and one of the eyes will begin to glow. Each ruby requires 50 hit points to be fully lit, so your players will need to decide how much each wants to give to get through. Once the toll is paid, the door will open, and the party will find a round chamber beyond. It's pitch black in here, so any characters without dark vision will be blind unless the party light a torch or cast a spell to brighten things. The walls, floor, and ceiling are covered in thick, stringy webs, making it difficult to move around. In several places, the webs spool up into sickening cocoons, hints as to what's waiting for them. After a few moments, 7 phase spiders, magical arachnids that can blink in and out of the ethereal plane, will appear all around the room and attack. As your party faces off with the monsters, they'll find the entire floor is difficult terrain due to the sticky webs. They'll also have to deal with the spiders popping in and out of the other plane as a bonus action, as well as the creature's poison bite. Once all the arachnids are slain, part of the webs will burn away, and the party can venture on. Beyond the landing, the maze begins once more, but your players will quickly find that the labyrinth has become even more menacing, with more twists, turns, and dead ends than before. The DC for a successful investigation check to get through is now 20, and each time they fail, they'll encounter more obstacles and have to keep saving against madness. Just for fun, here are a few more potential obstacles that you can throw at your party. Your players come to a hall where, if they succeed on the ever-present DC 17 perception check, the watcher may notice the shadows cast by the torches are a little longer than usual. If the party tries to pass, the shadows will spring to life, attempting to grab and suffocate them. They'll each need to succeed on a DC 15 strength save or be grappled and take 2d6 necrotic damage with each failed attempt to escape. You could also run this as an extra combat encounter, using shadows from the monster manual. Just be careful with their Strange Drain attack. Any wizards you have might not make it out of the hallway. The party reaches a hall that is completely filled with roaring flames. It sounds and feels real, but water doesn't seem to douse the fire at all. A successful DC 15 investigation check will reveal that it's some kind of illusion. If they step into the flames, they'll need to make a DC 17 wisdom save. Succeed, and they steel their mind against the illusion, but fail and take 8d6 psychic damage as they feel like it's real. If a character is immune to being frightened, they can just get through without any issue. Lucky them. The players start to notice small motes of light floating in the air. If they leave them alone, no problem. But if they touch even one of them, they all attack. The tiny little sparks will begin dive-bombing your party, forcing them to make DC 17 dexterity saves or take 46 lightning damage. After a bit of running, the motes will leave them alone, just a little worse for wear. A 40-foot long acid pit. That's it. If they fall in, they take 66 damage. Not every obstacle needs to be complex. As they walk, one of your players will start to hear a weird ringing in their ears. It'll get louder and louder until it becomes almost deafening. That player will need to make a DC 18 intelligence save or go a little bit crazy. They'll lash out and start making melee attacks against the other players, with a weapon if they have one, or just their fists. Each time they take damage, they can redo the save, with the DC decreasing by 1 each time they take a hit. Hopefully for their sake they succeed on the first try, though it'll be a lot more fun if they don't. Gelatinous cubes, 2 of them, sliding down opposite sides of the hallway. The watcher will need to make a DC 15 perception check to see them. Otherwise, your investigator is going to walk right into one. You can find the stats for these dungeon classics in the monster manual. Again, these are just some ideas for you to use, but feel free to come up with your own dastardly traps and terrifying obstacles for your players to run through. But eventually, they're going to keep progressing through that maze. Once your investigator finds the path forward, your party will reach another door. This door is tall, about 20 feet high, and there are a number of skulls across its face equal to the amount of players in your party. They'll need to simultaneously hit each one with an attack or spell in order for it to open, meaning everyone will have to pitch in. Or the wizard can just cast Magic Missile. Their call. Beyond the door is another circular chamber, but this one isn't covered in webs like the last. The floor is carved into all different grooves and small rivets, forming a maze on the ground, as if one wasn't enough. In its center, the small hole, a few inches wide, and some of the paths lead to 3 different levers that form a triangle around that middle point. Up above, the ceiling rises up high into shadowy darkness, illuminated by small points of light like glittering stars. To solve the puzzle, your players will first have to insert one of those small bits of light into the hole in the floor. By flying up, climbing the walls, or lassoing one with rope, they'll learn those glittering balls are physical marbles, each burning bright. Placing it into the hole will cause the entire maze to start to fill with light, tracing all the different pathways until they reach the base of those 3 levers. Runes along the handles will begin to glow, and to get out, your players will need to pull on each at the same time. Releasing one will cause it to fall back to its starting position, so unless they get creative, the same player won't be able to pull on them all. It's a DC 18 athletics check to pull on just one, and as they try, the light in the center of the room will start to shine brighter and brighter, so bright that it'll begin to burn. With each failure, the party will take 3d8 radiant damage, increasing by 1 die every time they can't get the levers pulled. It'll be up to all of them to work together, using help actions, inspiration, guidance, and whatever else they can to complete the task, which will shut off the lights and open the path forward. Back in the maze, your players will have to get through the twisting tunnels one final time. They'll need a DC 25 investigation check, another obstacle, and a save against madness to proceed. And that's only if they succeed on investigation the first time. I've already given you plenty of obstacle ideas, but keep in mind that if your entire party dumped intelligence, 25 might be a little too high of a DC for them to reach. They may never get out of the maze, so you might need to adjust. Eventually, they'll reach the final door. No puzzle, just a gold knocker waiting to signal they've arrived. Once they've announced themselves, the door will open, revealing the final chamber. It's pitch black in here, but for those who can see, the look of this chamber may be different depending on how you flavored the dungeon. If it was for a god of madness, there may be chains on the ceiling and statues of manic laughing faces lining the walls. If it's an old wizard's labyrinth, maybe it looks more like an ancient magic study with broken alchemy equipment and dusty old bookshelves. It should have at least two things though. Several pillars that are covered in arcane runes, and a statue or depiction of whoever the maze is dedicated to. That's not all that's in here though. Hidden behind the pillars, amid the chains or other details of the room, are 3 enemies. 2 Starspawn Manglers and a Larva Mage. These can be found in Monsters of the Multiverse, and again, you can flavor them to fit whatever design you gave the maze. An undead mage and his magical construct bodyguards, or a statue of an ancient god's champion and their horrid creations. They'll attack, and in order to claim what they've came for, your players will need to survive. The Larva Mage will hang back while the Manglers go in to engage with the melee attackers, using their bonus action to hide if possible since they're in total darkness. The Mage will also have legendary actions to fight your players with, and you can add layer actions, like chains that try and restrain a player each turn, or runes on the pillars that light up, forcing intelligence saves from anyone nearby or dealing psychic damage. Once your players have hopefully dealt with the mage and their underlings, the depiction of the maze's creator in the room will break or open, revealing their riches beyond. The player's prize for this ordeal is up to you. It could be lots of golden treasures, a boon for the cleric from their proud god, secret info they need to defeat the final boss, or all of the above. But once they've snagged their loot and are ready to get out, a stairway will open, leading them right back out to the start of the maze. Any madness effects they've suffered will fade, and they can finally leave the maze behind and continue on their adventure. And you can save any obstacles they didn't encounter for future dungeons. That's it for this quick quest. I hope you can find some use for it in your own games. Whether you run it as is, make a bunch of changes, or just mine it for parts, I'd love to hear what you think or how it goes in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like and consider subscribing to the Bard's College. I have other quick quests you can use at your table, as well as videos on monsters, DM tips, and whatever other D&D stuff I want to talk about. But for now, good luck, and remember, crit your players.